Okay, we are back, and for those of you who weren't with us at the beginning and wondered what these six old guys are doing sitting around here, I'm including myself here, guys. We are talking about the Sheridan company, later Harris Graphics, Harris Intertype, and so much a part of the community of Champlain for so many years. And we have with us Ernie Lavoie, who was on the assembly floor for the greater part of his 45 years that he worked here. Bob Morgan, who was a plant engineer and made sure everything was working so the rest of us could work. Al Strack, who at one point was the plant manager, so he had a variety of positions. Bob Emery, who was in the machine shop and had a lot of responsibility in different jobs there, and Rock Ware, who was in production control when I came, but after I left, it sounded like he had a whole bunch of different positions. And myself, I was here for 8 or 9 years, and, at Sheridan, and even our camera lady, Judy Castine, was here for almost 15 years. She was one of the last employees to leave, and she was just a few months shy of her 15 years, but she did get a 15-year clock, so she, one of her prized possessions. And Bob Morgan is still technically a part of the company. Al went on to work at Dayton, and Sheridan Company actually does still have a presence in the community, and that's the credit union, which I know you're certainly active with, Al Strack. It started out the Sheridan Company Credit Union. What was the name of it? And then, of course, you were familiar too, Ralph. It was in your yard for a while, and your wife worked there. And
Leo Goodward was
started
in
Leo's house.
Yeah.
He was the
Treasurer.
call him the man. He took care of all the accounts. And,
I can remember we were going to a race in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and I went down to get some money out of the bank. The bank was closed. So I went to the credit union and borrowed $100. Give it back on Monday. It was 10 cents interest.
Slightly more now.
Yeah.
for the weekend, come on now.
Yeah, for 3 days.
I know, but Al's going to charge
Well,
you
the
more than that.
paperwork now, I guess, just went and see old Leo.
And of course, we're taping this on July 22nd, and back in the Sheridan Company heyday, this would be Shutdown.
that's right.
The plant would be shut down right about now. The last 2 weeks in July was usually the. So was that always you guys that were here?
All the time I was here, it varied from August.
Yeah, either the last 2 weeks of July or first weeks of
Yeah,
August.
yeah.
Very.
We kept moving it back. August used to get cold there. So they moved it back to July, and finally got it down to the last 2 weeks. in
And that was
July.
basically trying to pick the hottest 2 weeks of the year, because it's hot out there in that machine shop with all those machines.
No air
running.
conditioning in those days.
And so that was, if you only had 2 weeks vacation, that was really 2 weeks. And if you didn't have 2 weeks vacation, well, that was still your 2 weeks. It did run on the skeleton crew.
Yeah.
And I know my first year in '66, I think I was offered a chance to work it, but I didn't. I took the time off, but there was a skeleton crew for the new people that wanted to keep working. Did you work your shutdown the first year, Bob, or did the shutdown affect you? Because you were.
We never shut down at the same time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Bob ran
It's a
maintenance,
big
so
cycle.
that was the big time for him.
That was when you were probably the busiest, because you could do all these things
Yeah.
that you couldn't do.
And a lot of people like yourselves have worked for maintenance that weren't, we needed them. We always tried to build a crew to do whatever jobs we had to do, whether it was painting or window washing or whatever the case may be. So we could always depend on working a normal shutdown.
Now, of course, Canada, I guess, is still known for their
That's more or less
vacation.
construction workers over there.
But I think a lot of plants used to shut
A lot
down
of plants
all at the
did.
same time. It was just,
I was involved with, I was responsible for a very, very small plant up there for about 5 years, Delagar, and we shut down.
That's common all the way through Europe and Canada.
A last week and this week. Sushi USA and Kimpex USA, they're all closed down up there, last week and this week.
I left here at 4:30 the other morning to go into Montreal, and that was a mess that going down to that Champlain Bridge, one-way traffic. Imagine if I'd have waited till 10.
Mhm.
At 4:30 in the morning, it was
And it was, they were what, bumper to bumper at 4:30, of course, just one lane in some places. And you bring 5 lanes into one.
all right, I want to go back, I started here at Sheridan, and we are at Sheridan. What was this room?
Personnel department.
So it's the personnel department? I mean,
Harold
Roger,
Provancha would sit right about.
oh, I was hoping this is Roger's spot.
Yeah, Rogers was around the corner.
I'm going,
Well, that is what-
going
this-
back just a little bit.
This is Jack Searle's office.
Searle was there,
That's right.
Springburg.
and,
Bert Vanderbilt.
or Vanderbilt, right there.
So this is where you, this
And
is
the
where that,
switchboard.
this is where you signed that book then?
Yep.
Right in there, okay, so that, so this is in '66, when Bob Morgan and I started here. This was where you'd walk in, as you said, Mr. Zerlo's
There's a
office.
door right on the other side of that wall, right there, is the main entrance.
Mr. Zerlo's office would have been here, and then Bert Vanderbilt, the secretary, and the receptionist would be here, and there's a, later on, there'd be a copying machine in that area. But in '66, we didn't have much of a copying machine here. And that's another thing, you know, I thinking today, earlier today, how copying machines evolved even during that short period from '66 to '75. But during that period too, I remember faxes coming in over the phone from Easton. And now, you know, the people who never experienced anything other than a fax that snaps it right out, back then, if they'd send a drawing from Easton up here, it would take half an hour.
They didn't call them faxes, those are teletypes, telexes.
And, yeah, Larry Jarvis was in parts at the time. And he was just around the corner here, that he and Red Briggs out of Easton, all the orders went to Easton, and then he'd fax them up to them.
Right.
Come here. So that thing would run all day long, you know, just getting the orders, and then you'd take them periodically during the day. Create the orders to ship them.
But that was a long, long process to do that. Now it's just, you know, we take, these things we take for granted in the year 2002, or, you know, we've seen evolve. Now, one of the things I'd like to do is just talk about the people that were here when I came, and maybe even some of the people who were here when I left, which again was only a 9-year period. So in some cases, it's the same person. A plant manager we've already mentioned, that was Mr. Jack Searle. Well, Jack came here, what, 35, I think, somewhere in that area?
I don't know exactly when he came here, but
Jack came here in '35 and he went to work for Triumph.
Alex?
He worked on Triumph for 2 years, well, to get to know the people, eh?
mhm.
And then when old Bert Einer was superintendent, and so they took old Bert Einer and put him boss of the lane department, and Jack superintendent.
So superintendent, yeah, the equivalent of plant manager
Yeah,
at
he
that
was
point?
up the whole, yeah.
So that was shortly after he came here, so he
Yeah.
held that position for 35 years or 30 years, or?
Well, he was plant manager, he was but, yeah,
Plant
he was plant
superintendent.
manager,
Plant
supervisor,
superintendent.
manager, whatever you wanna call it, he was not in the office.
Oh,
No, he-
Mr. Greenberg was in the office.
okay, Oscar
The
Breen.
plant superintendent, Jack was plant superintendent. Oscar Friedenberg was the plant
Yeah,
manager.
just the plant manager, yeah.
I'm not sure where the dividing line of responsibility was, but Jack reported to Oscar. Jack reported
Reported to,
to Oscar, to the plant
Oscar,
manager.
huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
but he controlled almost all
Oh,
operations.
yeah.
But Oscar left in, he was gone before I came. So
Oh, yeah,
He was gone before '59.
Yeah, I'm not sure when he left, and then Jack moved into plant manager.
I remember Oscar came back a few times and worked with Alan Huggaboom, another name out of the past here. He was a production and control manager. And Oscar would come in and do some work in the Cardex system at the time, which was the records.
Mhm.
Oscar would come in and do some work. Half days, probably two or three half days a week.
So would Oscar have been the
He'd been
plant
plant
manager
manager, yeah.
when you came then, Greenberg?
Yeah, he was plant manager, Oscar was.
Now,
No! Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was right.
can anybody think beyond that, who might have been there before that?
Roby.
Roby?
I've heard the name, a fellow by the name of Roby.
Yeah, he was manager of the
Roby was.
Champlain Valley Loan.
And yeah, he was very active in the community also, Mr. Roby.
When I came here, the personnel man was Doyle. Before Art May, a guy by the name of Doyle.
Art May, Bob and I were trying to think of the name earlier. His name was,
Okay, so, after Zerlo, now, the plant manager was really the person here
Yes,
who answered
he controlled all functions.
now, before Harris bought it, when Harris bought Sheridan, did there become another layer of management? I know Lynn Tipson name sticks out in my mind. from
Lynn
those
Tipson
days.
was corporate controller,
already
or
here.
vice president of finance, I'm not sure.
Gibson was here before Harris bought us, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's part of the old group.
Harris
And-
bought us in '64, I think it was. I had a picture somewhere, and I don't know where that, in fact, I think you may have it.
It was 1964,
64, that's what I thought.
Harris Intertech Corp.
But that did bring in more layers, but we didn't see it here. Do you agree? There was more layers after that.
Yeah, but we didn't see it. I'm sure they saw it at corporate headquarters, but we didn't see it.
So who would have been Jack Zerlo's boss at that point?
Ted Clark from corporate headquarters,
And that's from the Clark family.
from the Clark family.
That'd be Lucky Clark's uncle.
Yes. When Harris bought, it didn't really change very much. I suspect it was part of the deal that the family would stay involved. Got a picture of him somewhere here. Showed it to Ernie a minute ago. There, I had it and lost it. That guy right there.
This fellow here?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay, this would be Ted Clark.
that'd be Ted Clark.
All right.
He would have been Oscar's and Jack's immediate supervisor. And he
And
was president of the corporation for the division.
so he was somebody that came from Champlain, then probably. The Clark family was here.
No,
No,
the Clark family, the Clark and Sheridan families, I suspect were in New York,
That's where I was.
all right? Rob Clark, I believe, moved up from there,
Lucky's father.
Lucky's father. I don't know the history of that.
He was quite an old bird.
Okay, so they moved to the area. They kind of bought the Champlain Ironworks that was here.
Well, Lucky's house was over here on this side of the street, right in front of the shop.
By the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right in front of the lady
That's
department,
right,
right?
Lucky's Park was on this side of the road.
Oh, really?
They
It
moved
was,
the
it
house
was
up.
lady department then,
Yeah, it was lady department then.
yeah.
There was a row of windows where you could see well.
Remember there was a big fence all around
Yeah.
it, they had a big German Shepherd dog out
Yeah.
there? You didn't dare to walk outside one.
I'm not sure if we're answering your question, because Ted Clark never moved here.
He never moved here, no. He was always at the corporate
But
office.
he was, you were asking him.
Yeah, so the plant manager would have been answering
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to
And
him.
later on, did Pruitt come after him? Or was there another one in
Davis,
between?
wasn't it Davis?
Well, Davis came in and
Davis.
worked, it took Jack's place for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not
Pruitt,
Jack's place, no.
Pruitt
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
part of the Harris Corporation.
Right,
That was
Harris Enterprise.
that was a spin-off
yep.
of 5 divisions, and Pruitt became president of that group.
And the Harris Graphics, we became Harris Graphics.
Right. But then after Jack left, George Lewis was a part-time plant manager. He was a corporate industrial engineer living in Easton, Pennsylvania, and he would commute up here, and it'd be a few days a week.
Now, how about this Robert Davis?
Then Bob,
Sat in Jack's
then
office?
I'm not sure whether Davis became, was before or after George Lewis. Neither one
For
of
me, I
them.
think he was before.
You do.
Yeah, probably.
I would think
Neither
so.
one of them lasted very long.
No. I don't know, I'm not asking you guys to comment on this, but, and I don't know if any Davis family around here, Davis always seemed a little confused about what he was doing here.
Well,
My
he-
interpretation.
This was not, this type of industry was not his strong point.
Yeah, he was, he was just, and I think he's the one that followed Jack Zerlo. He just seemed like the wrong person to be following such a strong person as Jack Zerlo.
He was probably followed, George Lewis may have been after him.
Yeah, I think so. I remember George Lewis's name, but I don't think he was here that active when I was. Here's what we're talking about. This was the Sheridan company that operated here for so many years, and then it evolved from corporate purchases and stuff. And were they still kind of using this logo when the place closed in '87? Harris?
Yeah.
Harris Intertype originally, or?
It was Harris Intertype, and then we were spun off as Harris Graphics. In
Yeah.
fact, Harris went away from Intertype also. The Harris company that originally Boss is still going today as Harris Corporation. But they're into,
Bindery Systems Division, and then Harris Bindery, I think, was, a lot of different names,
yeah.
and you would have had to have been a keen historian to try to keep track of this at the time. 'Cause
Somebody wrote a little history here, and let me just give you a couple of highlights. I didn't write it, I'm not sure, it's not signed, all right? In 1964, it was a Sheridan company, that was purchased by Harris Intertype. In 1975, the Harris dropped the Intertype name, and it became the Harris Corporation. And that was some 20 divisions in 3 groups. It was commercial electronics with 9 divisions, U.S. government electronic systems with 6 divisions, and printing equipment group with 5 divisions. The printing equipment group, which we are a part of, or were part of, manufactured printing presses, business forms, equipment, and products of the Bindery Systems division. Let me just skip most of this. In early 70, wait a minute, let me get the dates correct. At some point, there was a spin-off. Can't pick the date, but I think it was around 1978. There was a spin-off of the printing equipment group. Those 5 divisions left the Harris Corporation and became this. Harris Graphics, became Harris Graphics, trying to think of the name. From Harris Corporation to Harris Graphics. Then we became 5 divisions, which the Bindery Systems division was one of the larger divisions.
Okay, and that's what.
Not the largest.
But this
That's
was
what,
the Bindery.
that's here, yeah.
Now, what period were you plant manager on?
I was general superintendent from 67 to 73, operations manager from 73 to 76, 76 to 84, plant manager.
Okay, is that when Mallory became involved?
Maurer became involved somewhere in the 78 period.
Okay.
That's when the construction of the building here, we built a division office in 78. All right, Bob?
Yeah.
And that's when that's when the division offices changed to here.
Okay, so at that point, the people you were answering to were on site then?
Yes.
So although you were plant manager, you
Yes,
did
it
have-
was a much bigger operation here. We had our engineering department back, we had all our sales groups
first time.
here, accounting, the whole bit.
Now, was engineering under U.S. plant
No,
manager?
no,
But it would have been under Jack Zerlos.
no.
When Jack-
Engineering was always a separate function.
So when Jack Zerlos was plant manager, engineering never answered to him?
If I remember right, the only thing that didn't answer to Jack was engineering and accounting. I think those two Now, he had indirect
Right.
responsibilities, but not direct
So
responsibilities.
the
He watched over,
manufacturer,
it, but they had their.
The
solid
dotted line
Yeah.
type.
okay. So what year, now Maori ended up, the group ended up buying the company? Is that correct?
Yes. I believe that was 78.
That long ago?
Yeah. Don't hold me to it exactly, but
Then they sold it to AM International.
Yeah. Well, actually went on the stock market probably a year or two after that.
yeah.
It became a publicly traded company, and then AM bought it, and that was where it all got, and I wouldn't know how to explain this, that's where the Ivan Boski thing came in, you know, where he went off to jail because there was some shady deals going on. That's when AM bought it.
Yeah.
We still got shady deals going on around the world.
Right.
Shady deals don't go away.
Yeah, but Ivan Boski was involved in the sale. It was one of the ones, and a lot of them, I mean, it was one of the things he was indicted for.
Okay. So, who was plant manager when it closed?
Lee Kern.
And then it was changed then, he was vice president of manufacturing.
Yeah, he was a combination of vice president, manufacturing, and plant manager.
So what was your position at that time?
I was director of sourcing.
What the heck does that mean?
That means that I'd run around trying to buy a lot of the resale products and to get a lot of the units subcontracting, the periphery units subcontracted, such as hopper loaders and the like of this. It was a fun job to travel all over.
Was it really?
Well, it gets a little old after a while, but
Okay. Production control, the production control manager when I came here was Alan Huggable, who you mentioned. And I should point out that for somebody coming into, 19-year-old starting a job, to have Alan Huggable as my overall boss, and Larry Jarvis under him, and then to work hand in hand with Joel McCrae, who ran that dispatch office that Bucky, Ralph, I call you Bucky?
Sure did.
That Ralph mentioned earlier. You couldn't ask for a better situation, because, what teddy bear else, Larry Jarvis was a fellow, and Alan Huggable was fantastic to me. And Joel was so easy to get along with that, you couldn't ask for a better situation. But Alan was kind of in between at that point. Later became, I think, special assistant to the president, to the plant manager or something like that there, and just kind of got a title, but he was never happy with it, and that's too bad, because I don't know what happened with him, and I'm not, but he was such a nice guy that I really enjoyed.
He was getting closer to retirement. And,
Yeah.
he worked, I think he actually worked special assistant to Davis, as we talked about. I think he worked with him.
I think so, yeah.
So I don't know, I think, well, maybe Lee Kern might have been the production control manager when I left. He was my boss.
Yeah, that's right, he was.
I was production control manager
Yep.
at that point. Any other before Alan Huggable?
When I came here, Alan was the production control manager.
Yeah, there were several in there, George Albert.
George Albert came after, right?
Yeah.
George Albert came up from, I forget where he came from, he was a production control manager. Yes, Ron Wildenmuth was in there for a while.
Yeah, and Jerry Kelly was
Jerry
in
Kelly
there
was
for
there,
a
he had
stretch.
purchasing in that, yeah.
Yeah, that was after though, this was
Yeah.
later years.
But prior to to Alan Huggable, Alan was the only guy I knew up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Larry Jarvis, I should point out, was a very hard person to work for him. Judy worked for him for a while, and he had this paddle he made that he threatened to paddle the employees with if they didn't behave. I think you've got that paddle, don't you, Judy?
Yeah.
I think you confiscated it.
Used to go down and have fish with Larry Friday. It was my turn to buy the beer that noon. Get light, he says. It's okay. Don't make me any difference. Got light beer. He ate most of the girls' buns. He ate their french fries. But he had to have his light beer.
Gotta save calories when you
He
can.
was a nice guy. We had more fun with our big roast with
Big
him.
roast, he used to have a ball with his.
Hamill would sit there and plague him for hours.
Yeah.
Because I don't think either one of them played cards, did they?
Larry did a little bit, not
Yeah.
much, so.
Okay, machine shop foreman at that time was Andy Blaine. So all the foremen answered to Andy. And I think Rod Barlow was there, and he left when I did. I think that was his position when I left.
Yeah, he was one of them.
Yeah.
And Ed White,
And White, Max Foss.
yeah.
He was the last one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Dick Roberts.
Dick. No, Dick never had that. He was in
Yeah.
the second shift.
Second shift.
Did you say Ralph
So I think
Ware?
I took it over after Max.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
And I think Ralph took it over after him.
After Max.
And the machine shop was never the same after that,
Yeah,
probably.
very good.
Let's see, the assembly, Steve Longton, another fantastic guy, he was the head of the assembly floor when I came.
Now, just prior to that was his brother, Nazaire.
As there was,
He had that job. And he was considered, he was the superintendent, right?
was
There was
So if I remember for a while, when Andy took, from what I've heard, I wasn't here, but he was responsible like Jack was for a while, and then Andy came into it is what I heard. I don't know if that's true.
Well, then his there was assembly and Andy was machine
Yeah,
shop.
machine was- Andy Blaine was machine, and his air was assembly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Nazaire ever had,
Pardon?
I don't think Nazaire ever had the
Yeah,
machine
it had
shop.
nothing to do with the
No.
machine shop.
Okay.
And when I left, it was, Bruce Bell was the assembly foreman, or head, whatever.
Assembly manager, yeah.
Whatever, and of course, he had, like, your brother-in-law, Lester Coulombe, had a large area of responsibility.
We went from floor chiefs running the floor completely to several foremen working for the assembly superintendent. We kept the chiefs were still there, but we broke up sections.
Yeah, Jim Patno, Lester Coulombe,
Bernie, Poisson,
Bernie Purcell.
can't remember who else. Well, it was 3 or 4 anyway.
And Clarence Rock in that department head was he was actually supervisor in the electrical department. That
Yeah.
was in that same department. That was considered part of assembly.
That was part of assembly at that point?
Mhm.
It wasn't always though, was it? Was it Bunny
Bunny
Maynard?
Maynard.
Bernie
Yeah.
Maynard, no, he was a maverick all by himself,
Oh,
yeah.
Bunny was something else, yeah.
He was primarily electrical chief.
Had to
Yeah,
roll a cigarette if the place was on fire.
True.
Well, let's see now.
Well, so Bunny might have been in charge not only of the electrical on the floors, but probably the plant maintenance
The
part
electrical-
too.
the Electrical maintenance too, yeah.
Yeah,
we never had, for a long while, we didn't have electrical maintenance until we got into some of the America Control machines, then we got Ken Duffy moved over from, was it Ken?
Don Johnson was handling it.
Don
And
Johnson.
then Ken Duffy probably was the first one that
Yeah,
went over in the so-called maintenance per se.
yeah.
so was electrical maintenance was under yours then?
Yes.
Later, yeah.
Now, like when
It
they
was
were,
split off.
And for a while, theoretically, they had the electricians on the floor like on the assembly,
Yes.
but really didn't have much involvement.
so like when Carl Merchant died overnight there, that he was working for you at that
Yeah.
time? That was a sad story. There haven't been probably a lot of people who died
Right in the building.
at the building, but
I don't know of any other one.
Carl
Oh,
Merchant.
Gilmer, didn't he?
Carl
Carl
Morehouse.
Yeah.
Carl
Carl Morehouse
That's
died
right.
in the building?
That's right. That's right. He was a night
They all
watchman.
work for maintenance, does that tell you something?
Carl called me up to say he wasn't feeling good and asked me for a replacement. And I called in Steve,
Andy LaMancha.
no, Steve
Oh, from Ross's
from
Point.
Raws's Point,
Steve Lovely.
Steve Lovely, and Steve called me, said, I can't get in, he didn't open the gates for me. And I had a key, he didn't, so I had to come up and open the gates for him, and we started to make it around, and we found him just outside of the boiler room. Right by the telephone that he called me. He
Wow.
probably never
Never budged from that
Never
spot.
budged from there.
Wow, that was a lonely job. I got to be night watchman.
Oh, yeah, he was all by himself here.
During some of the strikes.
During the strikes.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Shifts that you come in and work around the clock.
You'd come in the middle of the night, you'd be walking there and not a
Remember-
soul in sight.
Walking out of the foundry, that was a dreary place there. rats are half the size of a dog. And I was walking through the box shop, and just as I was about halfway through, the wind blew the door, and that door slid. I think my shoe marks are still on the cement floor.
My gal Mary that works for me now, she handles a lot of our shipping and receiving activities, but she does all the major bookkeeping too. So she's quite inclined, if she gets annoyed during the day, she'll stay on. She'll work 7, 8 o'clock at night. One morning I come in, she says, you know something? She says, this is one scary place after everybody leaves.
You hear every creak when you're the only one in the building. Yeah. All right, let's see, assembly, as we mentioned, Steve Longton. Engineering, again, when I started here, wasn't much engineering going on there. Who would have been the chief? You probably know Bob, because you would have been in '66. You probably might stand out with you more than.
No, not really. No.
Probably Joe Ledoux.
Huh?
Probably Joe Ledoux,
So the Stuart Reed was in charge for a while when it was smaller, right?
when it was smaller.
Less
In
cookies for a while.
'63, Joe Ledoux was here, because his pictures in this.
The guy that really was head, as I remember, for design engineering was Stuart Reed.
He went
And
over
after
to
that,
the
there
guy
was-
at noon, didn't he?
Yes.
And then there was Lester Coopey
Les
after that
Coopey
for a
was
while.
in there, yeah.
But it was a smaller.
Yeah, that was a smaller group.
That's when we had like a skeleton crew, let's say, the
Yeah.
rest were in Easton, but these guys would be the go-between.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zeke worked for engineering, as I recall. And
Lee
then, of
Gordon
course,
was
there was Doc Henshaw. Yeah, Lee Gordon,
And John Newbegin was there.
yeah.
Dick Warren.
Sick one.
Yeah.
Al Lewis. Was Al Lewis up here as an engineering?
Alois, he worked
That
on
was when it was
engineering.
full engineering, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then he went out in the shop
Right.
as a machine shop manager.
Didn't he have something to do with England too? Did he spend some
Oh,
time
there,
in
yeah.
England?
He's in
Before that
Lyria.
though, didn't he work in production control for a while as Alan's
Yes.
assistant?
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
Alan's assistant, and then I think he went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in production control, but I remember working for him for.
I don't remember Al Lewis going to England, although
Yeah, Lyria, he was in Lyria, yeah.
he went to Illyria.
I thought he went to England for a
He
while.
went to England?
Yes,
He went to
did.
England?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember Lee Kern went to England.
Some kind of a manager over there, wasn't he? And he
Yes,
came
he
here,
Yeah,
as
yeah, I
a-
went over as something.
Yeah.
came here as superintendent after he left England?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because when he come back from England, or his last time, he popped in the house one Sunday afternoon about 2 o'clock, snowing and raining like a bastard. He says, come on, we're going to Albany. And I looked at him, I said, Albany, what the hell for? He said, I got this stupid rental car out here and I gotta turn it in tonight. So Ann and I drove all the way to Albany with him.
Oh, my.
And the lights quit working on his vehicle when we got down around Glens Falls. Remember, we had to drive in front of him, so we got all the way, turned the car over. And then, my God, we stopped in someplace on the way back and went in. And after being in there an hour and a half, I'm not sure how we did drive home after that.
Al Lewis also went to Easton. He was he went down there as the production control manager for a while. Because I remember going down with him when he moved his family down. I drove down with him because I was starting to take on more of the responsibilities he had in production control. So I rode down with him and then he flew back.
Mhm. Was he in the machine shop before or after you? Before?
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, when I came off second shift, I took, when Bruce moved over into parts department, I was responsible for assembly,
Right.
electrical, and then came to machine shop after. And Al was before that, Al
Yeah.
Lewis was before that.
Way before that, right after Andy, I
Yeah,
think.
that sounds
Yeah.
right.
After, no, Barlow was in there.
Barlow was in there.
Barlow was in there, but I'm not, I'm not sure the sequence of
Barlow
it.
left in January 2nd, 1975, I can tell you that much. That's when I left.
Dates are embedded in your mind.
It's in there.
Well, I remember what happened to him, but,
Yeah, so can I. I used to tell him, it wasn't up to me to tell him he was my boss. I said, you better straighten up.
and he didn't.
And he didn't.
But he talked a good fight, though.
And the welding department, I'm going to get to that, but that was under the machining department. It wasn't really a foreman, but.
Him and his buddy down there went with him.
Chief.
He used to have guys come in on Saturday or clock them in for Saturday. And they'd give them the pay.
You talking about Tuca?
No.
No, that was a welding shop.
Guy was-
They'd come in, they would, he'd pay him for Saturday and they'd give him the money.
Hubble.
No, he's talking about a guy before that.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that?
Oh, I can
the
do it.
guy. What was it? The guy-
Barney White, what the heck, wait a minute, I just had his name on the tip of my
Yes,
tongue.
Baron? Gary DuParon?
Duperrin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Duke Kern. Wasn't here long, but.
no.
He left, I think, at the same time.
yeah,
But
that's
I
right.
remember
That's
Noel
right.
called me in his office, he said, did you lend him some money? I said, I don't see where that's any of your business.
Oh, yeah, I know who it is.
He was a character, oh. We were down to KC's after a ball game, and I says, give the boys a drink, and the guy that died, DeMars, yeah, Duperrin says, give me a double shot and a beer. DeMars says, that's not a drink. Take one or the other. And it's only one shot, he says. I says, thank you.
Well, that was a shot, that was a drink for him.
That was.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Okay,
Down in
back to the
Shop,
shop.
also there was another
Okay.
guy down there. Andy Young.
Andy Young was down there, George.
Ed Favreau was the chief. Andy was the guy.
George Cookman was down there
Yeah.
when I started.
Who?
George Cookman. Old George.
George
Yeah.
Cookman's father.
Yeah.
Who
He was a
father.
he was a welder.
Yeah,
Yeah, welding part, yeah, we're talking about
well,
welding.
they built Lucky's antenna down there in the bay.
Well, Lucky worked in the welding department for a long
Yeah.
time.
Was that a government job, or?
I don't know how it was, but
Was
I would
that
assume Lucky paid for that.
Yeah, good assumption.
Yeah.
Lucky if you're watching, you wanna know. We have an outstanding bill here. Government job was the name for, jobs that weren't necessarily on the payroll.
There was a lot of government jobs down there.
Yeah, you know, if you had- and that was another good thing about the company. If you had something that you needed to have done, you could bring it in. It's usually, it wasn't, you couldn't flaunt it, but you could get the job done.
Some
And
of
help
it-
people.
Some of it they snuck through, but a good share of it was done legitimately.
Anything you wanted to borrow, like I needed a transformer to go to 220, is it, or whatever, just go and borrow it. I drill holes in cement, I got the drill and the transformer. Why steal it? I didn't have no use for it anyway, just drill that one hole.
The real philosophy was, if you don't do it that way, you have to set up a security system so tight to try to control it. You better to work with it.
Yeah, and let's face it, you know, I'm sure it was a lot freer in the 50s and the 60s than it was later on in the 70s and so on. You know, the St. Mary's or the fire department or somebody needed a job done, they'd see Jack Zerlo or somebody else, and
Well, right up till the end, he'd bend
Yeah.
over backwards for the fire
Yeah.
department.
We built the first rescue.
That's one thing Jack didn't put up with, is stealing. Maybe that's set against that.
but if you ask them.
You asked him for it, oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, okay, so the other well, you said
That's
that's
right.
Andy, okay.
Andy was the guy that welded the big XB binder, UV binder frames and
Yeah.
fixture.
We got that down pretty good with
Yeah, fuzzy,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, let's see, who we got, Leonard Patry.
Yeah, Leonard.
Leonard was the
Heat treater.
the heat treater.
Okay, personnel, when I came here, it was Dick Purcell was the personnel manager, and kept hearing stories about this evil guy in Easton named Roger Nolet. And then Roger ended up coming back here, but,
Roger was the division personnel guy,
For a little while, yeah.
right? Then he decided it wasn't his cup of tea and came back.
now,
I think he started here. Roger
Yeah, he
started
did.
here.
He was here when
And
I-
then went to Easton.
Yeah.
Didn't care for it an awful lot.
Roger's a local
Yeah.
guy, and he started up here. And Dick Purcell, a good friend of yours, right, Bob?
Yes,
Next door neighbor.
next door neighbors.
And I didn't realize that he was still pretty good contact until I read Armin Cardin's funeral, and I saw Dick was one of the pallbearers, so Dick's probably still in contact with a lot of you guys.
Oh, yeah,
Where is he now?
quite
Is
regularly, in Troy.
that where he left, when he left here?
Yeah.
He actually went back to the company he worked for before.
Arrow shirt.
Carol Sheridan, yeah.
Who was that bird they put out at the end of the tunnel? Personnel man.
Tall
Oh.
guy?
Yeah. He was something.
Hatch.
Is that his
Bill
name,
Hatch.
Hatch? Yeah.
William Hatch wasn't here very long.
No, I could
I was
be-
on the second shift.
Borrowing money from the troops. and-
Yeah, he was an older guy, went back, I think he came out of the war, Vietnam maybe or something. And he went back to college, and he was just starting to get back in, he went back to school, got his degree, and this is one of his first jobs. And he was an old, Not old, but older.
I didn't think I don't remember him being that old, because he said to me, he says, you
Well, no,
you
no,
older guys are set in your ways.
No, he was old for coming out of college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he probably was early 30s.
And he says to me, he says, I'd like to talk to you when you have time. I said, I've never had time. You wanna talk, let's talk. And he told, says, you guys are set in your ways. I said, young man, I says, we started a Second World War from scratch, I says. And then what did we do? I says, we went out and educated a bunch of mutts like you. Have a good day. And I walked out. Well, that told me after he left, I was telling Roger, he says, why didn't you tell me that then? I said, I didn't figure it was necessary. We didn't get along worth a darn.
Okay, Roger, Nolet was the personnel manager when I left, and he was here right to the end, right?
Yeah.
And Roger would be, obviously, if he was still living in the area, he'd be one of the ones that I'd
But
invite.
there was more
They had an
personnel
office set up
people
in the
come in.
school down in Ross Point, didn't he?
Yeah.
Roger?
Yeah.
Roger had an office set up in the school in Ross
St.
Point.
Patrick.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a while.
But also, we had some interim guys that came in. There was, Clem Burlingame wasn't here a long time, and
Don Lazaro,
Don Lazaro.
these were division people.
Right.
Roger was always
Then there
Plant.
was a real young fellow, and I can't remember his name.
Jeff.
Jeff, that's right. Yeah.
Rosaro's down at Paper Mill, isn't he?
I think so, that's what I hear.
And of course, working for the personnel for a long time was Florence.
Pauline?
Pauline.
So for a while, not a long time, but she worked in there.
And then Marilyn Provencha
Was there, Maryland was
to
there
the
for a
end.
long time.
And I had Ben Dames named down here, but we've mentioned Ben and Bunny Maynard. We've mentioned electrical. There was briefly a guy on, I think it was on nights, probably came in '66, Colonel Craig. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He had some
Yeah.
ideas.
He was down in maintenance, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was maintenance.
See the guy
foreman.
smoking a cigar? No,
No.
no, that was Sarge.
Very
That was later
military.
on.
Yeah, Sergeant still, Sergeant Tracy, yeah.
I think him and
Good
Ben
man.
didn't see eye to eye the first
Yes, he
day.
was. Real smart. He
Yeah.
knew how to
But
deal
I'd
with
forgotten about
things.
him,
But he thought he was in the military, I think, and
Yeah, he couldn't handle the restrictions of union atmosphere. He was used to saying, I want it done and get it done.
so the colonel wasn't here
He
very
left
long.
of his own volition just because
Yeah.
he wasn't comfortable here at all.
Yeah. Now,
And Norm Moak took his place, didn't he?
Yep. And we'll take on after that.
Norm must have been here to the end, and he pretty close to it. I think he was, I don't know when Norm left the
Oh,
area,
I think
because
he was here.
pretty
Yeah,
close to
pretty
it.
darn
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ended up with two criminals.
I don't know where he is now, but his son Matt still is in the area, you know.
Yeah, he's operating a tool business
I
in
think they-
Virginia, I think,
Out of North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Electrical, you mentioned Clarence Rock was the head one.
He was the
here.
supervisor.
He went on to one of the Prim Hall employees, I know.
Yeah.
Frank
Still there.
Purcell went there.
He's now retired.
Yeah, Craig.
Oh, he did retire?
2 weeks ago.
Ah.
So, Rocky's retired. Clarence used to love it, but every time he'd come down and sit down and ask me a question, I'd sing "I'm a Rock" to him, and he'd kind of grit his teeth. And then, I don't, he was never a boss of anything, but Leo Boucher is certainly a name we ought to mention.
He was chief building maintenance.
Yeah.
And anytime that we had a construction job, he was boss.
He was
A little
all,
hard to work for.
yeah,
Well, he was a perfectionist, but he wanted it done his way, and
yeah.
He got along good with George.
Oh, yes,
Him and George Finette got along good.
yeah.
Yeah.
but everybody was chummy to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the name for everybody. Hey, chum.
Hey, chummy. Now, accounting. Now, I don't know who, I know when I left there, Armin Carden was up there, Arsene Favre was up there, but I don't remember particularly who was.
Gordon Bogue at one time was there.
Joe Weiss.
Yeah,
Joe White.
but Joe came after I did.
And Roger Miller eventually came
Yeah.
and took.
That's a good point. When Easton moved here,
Yeah.
then they moved up the head office financial people. Roger Miller was here.
And these other people had sections.
Yeah. Well, the roof was over there too. On what was it?
Mhm.
Now, industrial engineering with, Cliff Duquette and Dennis LaFountain and people like that, that wasn't always a part of the company, wasn't it? A relatively new,
He started it, Al did.
Yeah.
Started with Sandov Gold, wasn't it?
Well, what's that?
Started with Sandov Gold, didn't he? Was the first one to do the processing?
Cliff Duquette and Dennis.
No, I think Sandov was ahead of Clifford.
Sandov Gold. I can't picture Sandov Gold.
It was before my time too. He wasn't here when I came. But
I think, yeah, because I used to be at Ray's Alley, he'd write out, process it, machine to print. And I'd say, why waste our time having him do that? Why don't you have him process jobs that need processing? Sandov Gold.
Can't remember that for some reason. I'll tell you how the processing really got started is we quoted on rotary trimmers. I think it was 8 or 10 of them for our downlight. And our quote was so tight, we tried to figure a way how we're going to meet to match them. And in order to make the quote, I didn't have enough experience, so I got in a whole lot of people from the machine shop, Clifford Duquette, Dennis LaFountain, and there were others, I just don't remember who they were. And we figured on how much time we were going to give for each operation. So we stamped the back of a card, and we cut it down by 15%, but with the amount of time that we allotted. And we told all the foremen, this is what we've got to do in order to make money on this quote. And sure enough, they came around and did it. Whether or not they fudged it, of course you wouldn't do that, Bob.
No, I never did.
Time on another time.
But nevertheless, it was so successful that we sold the idea of doing this on a permanent basis. And Sando may have been one of them, but
I
I know
think
Cliff-
Sandov was way back before. He had a little office over near the maintenance department someplace. And he'd done it for, I don't know, a matter of months probably. Because what he was doing, as far as I was concerned, didn't amount to all that much. And then they moved upstairs. Clifford left the machine shop and went up
Yeah.
there. And I remember quoting a job for Hazlett. And me and Dick Roberts come in on our own time. And we worked on that for about 40 hours. So the quote would be right. What they do, they give us 24. You don't think the hair didn't come up on the back of my neck?
Well-
And then they take 40 hours to program it, and give up 24 to machine it. Of course, Robert says, well, don't get all on glue.
like with any other department that's starting new, we had a lot of struggle
Oh, yeah.
to go through. And when we first got the numerical control machines, then it took some real industrial
You're a
engineering.
good man, Herbie.
Yeah,
Herbie
and
Jones.
then we got the
Yes.
Herbie Jones involved and so on.
Ron Robinson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ron was another one.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned.
Dick Roberts, Smiley Willette worked in
Dick
it.
Roberts, as far as, Dick Roberts and Herbie. Herbie can do just about anything, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Herbie was very creative.
Yeah. But I worked with Herbie for I don't know how long. Nights I'd come in, and on the HG trimmer, when we first got those,
Mhm.
how would we machine them? And we got that around, and of course, he done all the fancy work. I just doing a couple ideas here and there.
Well, see, all the people that we mentioned had experience in one field or another. And in order to pull that all together and get it all in one mind was darn difficult. So we'd often reach out and call on the Bob Bermies or the Dick Roberts or the likes of this.
That's what was nice about this place, that we worked together.
Yeah, well, in most cases, the guy who knew the most about that machine, is the guy at the end putting it together, and, you know, he's the he's the final say on it. Okay, again, to some of the machine shops, the machine shop, as I said, Sandy Phillips was, I think it was probably his last week. He was sick, he was going out, he thought temporarily, but, you know, he didn't come back, and
No, as a matter of fact, that the night before he left, before he went to the doctors, we were talking, because I used to bicker with him a lot until he got so sick it was no fun anymore. And he leaned over, and if I wouldn't have stopped him, he'd land right on his head. And I stopped him, I said, picked him up, I said, what's the matter with you? Oh, he says, I'm sick. I said, why don't you go to the doctors? So he did, like you say, he never come back.
He never came back, did he?
No.
No, I went to see him in the hospital to tell him that I was taking his place until he come back. And he says to me, he says, what's that stuff flying around on the wall? He was on his way then, he was
He's a nice man. He was
really bad, yeah.
Before we leave industrial engineering, I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we recognize people like Lee Kern and Pat Egan. These are all people that came in and really made that department grow and become sophisticated. Because it truly went from an experience-based thing to a very highly technical operation. And we had, you know, we had the Lou Hills and the Barry Slees, I think his name
Who's
was.
the guy who won the boat?
Barry Slee.
He was a bird too.
We had some people that we could skip over without hurting too much, but
Lee,
Oh, he's
Lee
nothing
was-
wrong with being a bird.
Lee was a very quiet guy, but he was very, very good.
Yeah, he
Right.
contributed a great deal to the industrial engineering function. Pat Egan did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a quiet sort of a guy.
Yeah,
And Mary Morelli, of course, wasn't an engineer, but she worked in that office.
Yeah.
She was,
A long while.
she was there, you know, probably right up to the end, so she probably had her 25 years in when she
Bruce
left.
worked for you right at the end, didn't you?
yeah.
Lathe department, when I came in, it was Homer Laramie, and when I left, I think Andy Blaine was heading the lathe department.
I'd forgotten that later.
Yeah, and Homer was, of course, we mentioned earlier, one of the ones that lived in one of the company houses
Yeah.
there
Mhm.
for many years. Any other names that stand out? And of course, we should mention that following Sandy Phillips was, of course, Bob Emery that took over the planer and boring mill. Any other planer, boring mill, or lathe people that mention, you know, obviously we can't mention every guy that ran a machine out there, but.
Are you gonna mention other departments of the
Yeah,
building? And-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Next one, I think, next one going into is the drills, and,
Well, Dick Roberts running the boring mill, was foreman of the boring mill department for a while.
yeah, I think Dick was night foreman for a while when I was here, and,
And he was night super for a while.
yeah. I think, Roger Tatro, I think, was running the drills when I
Yeah.
came, and I think he was running them when I left, or as I call him, Pedro Tatro.
Got it in.
I don't think I'd want to put one of those odometers, pedometers there to see how many miles that guy walked in a day.
Roger?
Roger.
Oh, my.
He's still, when he goes somewhere, he's going.
Yeah.
He walks fast.
And often, he just
Oh, yeah.
put on more miles than any three people in the plant probably. And when the Millers, Bert Dooley was kind of at the end of his tenure here.
Yeah,
when
I
he
started for
came.
Bert.
And
Who
then
took over? Clifford took over
Lester.
after Bert, didn't he?
Lester.
Clifford worked there for a while, yeah.
Yeah, as a
Clifford.
foreman.
Clifford was a drill hand, but he went over to the Millers.
Clifford, who?
Duquette.
Well, he was a Miller hand in 45, because he run the Miller next to me.
And then he
Run the
went
Milwaukee and I run the Cincinnati. That little automatic thing then. Talking about that, we were making the notches in the binder rods, and Jack come up with a tool, about that big, with one tool in it, carbide tool. And I would fly through there and then it'd go, and by the time it'd go and return, I'd had open the vise, push that down, it was on a gear, or slot, hit it with the hammer, and then take a cut. So Jack brought over some company to show him his design, and hit that hammer, hit that tool.
Hit the tool instead of,
Took me right up. It was a leather hammer, you know. And old Jack looked at him, his tool was broke. And the guy with him said, "Kid, from there." I was going around in a circle. Almost knocked me out. But old Jack wasn't worried about me, he was worried about that tool.
Well, a tool's hard to replace.
Oh, yeah.
There's always somebody else to run
Oh,
that
yeah.
machine.
I was 16 years old. That thing. Matat was running the bandsaw next to me with a piece of cardboard over his head, so the chips would fly the top while they were
Marcel?
red hot, yeah. They were blue, they were so hot. That worked good, it was a good tool. And then, of course, they come up with a gang cutter and cut all the
yeah,
slots at once. But
cut it
that
at once.
one thing, yeah, that really.
Now, mention Marshall Matat. Now, there's a guy who always looked
Oh,
neat. always let me,
Wherever he went somewhere, he had a rag in his hand, he was very, very neat.
you know, there's some people that just, you know, just can't help looking.
You know, you didn't know Pico go back.
I was just gonna say, I heard the
Yeah.
same thing about
That
him.
guy was unbelievable.
Never give you dirty.
I get dirty walking
He'd
in
walk
the
down
shop,
street,
be done working all
you'd
day.
swear he didn't come from work.
That's right.
And that should
Always
be work.
walked to the right. Yeah, he ran a lathe with Darcy Cooley.
Yeah.
Well, at least when I was, he probably ran other
Yeah.
ones, but that's what
I don't know, I never knew him working with Darcy, I knew
Yeah.
him working downstairs.
Downstairs, I remember.
When I came here, he was doing some work over here.
I think he took somebody's place when the old man couldn't.
Probably.
After Bert, well, Lester Hamill was kind of his apprentice, and Lester took over, and then of course Charlie Passanal, I think,
Was
was.
assistant.
Yeah.
I think Charlie was the manager, because they moved Lester out, and by the time I left, Charlie was, I think, the,
Mm.
and of course, milling department also included things like the grinder, and,
Yeah.
Gear
cutter,
Cam Miller.
Cam Miller,
Spline.
Robert Morelli ran, you know, and the gear cutter with the Cloud Gooley and Schaefer,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Bill,
Old Bill LeClaire?
Bill LeClaire, yeah. It was a, you talking about your piece of work, it was a funny old
You
guy.
know Old Bill?
Oh, yeah, he was here,
Yeah.
yeah, he was here, he was almost good for a joke. He just-
yeah.
It's the time we took it now. Cut that. I just picked up his shoe. He had a pair of boots, it was a snowy day, and I just picked one up and took it over to give it to Hamill. Hamill gave it to Red Trombley. Red Trombley cut the heel off. Threw it at him. Well, anyway, he had to run in and see no that, big crime. So, no that come out, comes right to me, he says, you guys get caught fooling around with Bill, you're gonna get fired. I said, what are you telling me for? He says, if you didn't do it, you'll spread the word. I said, okay. So then I says, oh, he wants to be that way. He said, and he went and got a brand new pair now. Listen to this. He was brave. Set them right there. I walked by, picked another one up. Every time I see them, they were taking them to the doctors. Threw his shoe rode by the school. A week later, he stood in the road. He straddled it with his car. Then he went into convulsions again. And Nolan says, you know, that man could have died. I says, we all got to go. That's just some of the stuff we done there. Oh, my.
Whose decision was it to make this guy foreman now?
They had to join me. He couldn't do nothing with me.
Couldn't do anything with him any other way.
Get me out of the union.
That was a lot of stories for sure, and there were actually more before I came than after, because I remember you guys talking about dumping water through the window.
Oh, yeah. Carl found that all his paperwork done. He was sitting at the desk on the landing there by the grinder. I was up on the roof. Took a bucket of water. And they had that mimeograph paper. I guess it's what you call it, all turned blue.
Yeah.
And he run around the grinder. I know it's you. He'd say, I know it's you. And they turn around and run the other way. And there I was up on the roof watching them.
I don't remember these two fellows particularly well, but you older guys would. Henry Trahan and Chick Earl
Yeah.
from the maintenance group.
Oh, yeah.
Chick was here for a little while when I was here, but I'm sure he was here quite a while when you guys.
He's like an old bird.
Yeah. He used to be the one that took care of the tower.
Yeah.
The only one that'd climb up on top of the tower.
Work-
People couldn't work with him.
No, no, no.
Boy, he could do anything.
He was working on the crane out there with a wrench, and he pinched his fingers or something, and so I could throw this damn thing clear to Montreal, he said. The cupola was fired up. Better yet, fuck it in the door. Down the cupola I went. Then I won't slip anymore, he said. Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the things that cautioned me, Bill, when I got in maintenance was to watch Henry Trahan, because he put drain lines in, and they'd always be backwards. They'd flow the wrong way. And this was the truth, supposedly. They never could figure out what the hell was going on. Well, it took me 6 months. I borrowed his transit to set the elevations on the foundation wall over there at the house was building. When the contractor started, he says, one end of this thing, he says, it's 2 inches lower than the other end. I checked his instrument that he used to set the drain lines up there, and it was wrong. It was off. So, If he just happened to set it up the right way, flow would be the opposite direction.
My neighbor, old Grant,
Yeah.
used to like to talk. Yeah, I like those guys.
Yeah.
Well, Jules is a nice guy.
Yes.
Yeah, his family's carried on that construction
Oh, yeah.
heritage. Okay, FPS, Leo Willett was down there. Of course, Willette's another
Yeah.
name, the
Yeah.
family name,
Yeah.
and Smiley and Cliff.
Mhm.
Yeah, another name.
I worked in there too with Leo. He was called
Sorry.
Man, they
Finch
couldn't
Park.
find a place for you, could they? They
No.
worked all over.
Jack used to, got me and Wells one day, that's when Wells painted his shoes. I got blamed for that. He was giving me hell, and we were painting this orange paint used for oil, I guess, or something, I don't know. He was giving me hell, and Orville was painting the heels of his shoes, you know, like you got a thread around there. He had a nice little design red all the way around. And here I was, he was giving me hell. I guess he thought he was breaking me up, because I was trying so hard to stop from laughing. I was crying. And out he went. He come back with a different pair of shoes. I knew. He come in there, he says, "Wells, you come with me." No, it was me. He said, "You come with me." He put me in with Leo Platt, and he says to Wells, "You stay here. And if you move, I'm gonna fire you. And if you come out of that, you're fired." Okay. Yeah, wonder he didn't die young, poor man.
I've had my shoes, you must have had your shoes painted at one point or another, the back of them.
Oh, yeah.
I believe so.
Probably Al and Bob might be the only ones who didn't get their shoes painted.
Yeah, I don't remember ever getting one.
No?
Ernie must have, somebody
You
must have
didn't stand
painted,
one place long enough.
somebody must have painted your shoes at one time or another, huh?
No, not really.
No? That used to be a ritual here. Somebody had said you
Especially if you had a new pair.
they paint the back of them at least.
I never did that.
Okay, I think down at FPS, Larry Jarvis might have been there when I left. I think Larry LaForest run that for a while too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry LaForest went there, and then when I went to the machine shop, Larry went down to the
Box
shipping,
shipping.
receiving in that area, and then later came back to
LaForest.
assembly
Larry
manager.
LaForest.
Larry LaForest, yeah, yeah.
I think Jarvis was there when I left.
Yeah, and then Larry, when he left there, of course, went up, or Judy would know very well, he went up into the parts department.
Yeah, part service.
Yeah,
And Dennis Phillips ran the
Yep.
finished stores.
for a while, yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, he did for a while. Actually, George Bombardier was down there for a while. and
Yeah.
then-
I knew George was down there.
And then Dennis went to the assembly area. He was assembly for him.
He started for me, Dennis.
that right?
Burring, yeah. Called me Mr. Emery. I said, "I don't want to interfere with your upbringing," but I said, "You can call me Bob, I guess I appreciate it."
Okay, in the steel room, I'm not sure if the Ernie,
Brisson.
Vic Brisson.
Yeah.
well, Ernie
And then Ernie
DeMarce
Marsh.
was there. I don't know if he was in charge of it or not, but Ernie was in there with Real Richard.
It was Vic Brisson before
Yeah.
that. And then Ernie took over after Vic.
Before that, it was Charlie Chevalier.
Oh, really?
In relation to the guy in shipping, Fred.
Brother?
Brother.
Yeah.
And of course, out of that steel room, I remember this young fellow working nights, when I was on nights for a while. He was driving truck part-time and working in the steel room, and one day he decided he was gonna drive truck, and now a couple hundred trucks later, he's still doing it, Olin Harvey. You never know. Helpers,
There's another guy who worked in there for a while,
John Burt's.
John Burns.
Yeah, John Burt's, BCI.
Yeah.
Retired now and going off and working up at Customs doing something there. Yeah, he was there for a while.
I think Roland Emery was in charge of the helpers when I started.
He followed the chief, I guess, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was here for quite a while.
He used to put me to work. When they'd slack off in the machine shop, they put me working for my father, give me all the rough job. Put me out in the carload of frozen sand. Me and Earl Smith. So I says, "Well, it's too cold in here. It's too cold to work in here, Earl. Let me go get a barrel of Coke." And I said, "Well, start a fire and then we'll come back." Come back, burn a hole in the bottom. Boxcar about that big. My barrel was set down. My father came in next to, "What are we gonna do?" I said, "Cover it up with a sheet of steel so I can finish our job and then ship it out. Nobody will ever know what came from here." mother, I'd get old, my mother say to me, "You trying to kill that kid? I'd crawl behind the stove and sleep." A kid like work like that today? Oh.
And I think Harold Yell was in charge of the helpers when I left, Hank Yell.
He was like the one,
Yeah, it was for a while.
Harold Hill was?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Then he left here and went to,
Harris.
Oh, very-
was it Harris?
Harrison Shazy.
Is that right?
I never knew where we went.
No, I knew, because you told me he went to Harrison.
Hell, yeah?
Yeah.
And you worked for the post office in Plattsburgh for a while?
Yes,
Yeah, I think you're
we
right
did,
there.
yeah,
Yes.
I remember that.
The GDC or whatever,
GSA?
GSA.
And then I guess he went to, I know he worked at Shazy.
Who was, I'm trying to think if it was a Garso or what, it was, I'm not sure if he was a helper, if he worked in shipping. He was a big, heavy guy, and he had a gravelly voice, and,
Freddie Garso.
and,
Used to build the boxes for
he had
repairs.
throat cancer or something.
Yeah,
and-
he built the boxes for repair department.
and-
Freddie Garso.
Yeah, I remember him down there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, my
Another-
gracious, I forgot
There's
about
another one that he said, well, I've had this and that, and you knew, and he just
Freddie
told.
Garso. Can't place him.
it. Heavier set guy, bald. In his 50s when he went.
Reasonably quiet.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah,
Built all the boxes for repairs.
he had a rough voice
I
to
know
begin
little
with. then he
Busky
had
was
that-
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, little Busky had to throw cancer.
Percy?
Julius, wasn't it?
Julius, yeah, but he's called Percy.
Oh.
Roland Busky used to work in assembly floor.
Yeah. This person.
Man that had a rough voice was John the Bear, we call him there?
Frank Gabriel.
No, he ran a boring mill years ago.
Oh, Superdown. John Superdown.
John Supernaw, yes. We called him John the Bear.
Yeah.
John Supernaw. Oh, he had been gassed during World War I, and man, he just didn't have no voice,
Rough.
He had crushed stone in his radiator. He didn't say pressed stone, he called it crushed stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hooked up 2 batteries, set his car on fire. Yeah.
But you did mention Frank Abair, and he had
Yeah.
a unique voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. He was a
Died
nice
in his
guy.
garden.
Did he? Just-
Yeah, I found him laying in his garden.
Just a couple of years ago, he hasn't
Yeah.
been dead that long. In shipping, I know Jim Daly was down there for a while, I'm not sure if, and Fred Chevalier was there at the end, when I left. Was Jim the head of the shipping, or?
No, it was really, Freddie worked, I think Jim worked for Freddie.
Yeah. Jim didn't stay an awful long time.
No. Freddie stayed until he retired.
Yeah, I think so.
And then,
There was a mailman from Moses Point there, married the Ashline girl. He worked down there too.
Oh. The guy that delivered
Bob
mail?
Gatto.
Yeah.
Bob
oh,
Gatto.
Bob
Gatto,
Gatto,
yeah.
exactly, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
He
but
worked
Bob
there.
left, and went to the post
Yeah.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was,
And Alan Cardine went down there and took over as traffic manager,
Yeah.
and Freddie worked for him for a while, and I don't remember who went in there after
Boring,
Freddie.
yeah, Harry, Boring, not Harry.
Bob Dono was
Larry.
practicing.
Larry Boyd.
Larry Bory was down there for a while.
Yeah,
Clifton Doopy probably.
yeah. Cliff worked there.
Miner worked there.
Yeah.
Jerry Miner?
Don
Don
Miner.
Miner,
Don
Don
Miner.
Miner, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a helper.
Yeah.
His brother's a superintendent of buses at school.
And Gary.
Yeah.
All right, night superintendent, he was here when I came, here when I left, Gerard
He
Juno.
was there for a little while. He got,
The chief.
Yeah. I didn't-
And Roberts was there for a while,
yeah,
and then Ralph was, had a stretch at it.
for a year.
Yeah.
Actually, Gerard was sick for a while, and I came on and took his job, and then he came in and actually worked for me for a while. He had the welders at night, and he had some of the other.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah, for a
having,
year.
remember having a bomb scare when Ralph was working.
Yeah, he did.
And we called the troopers, and together we decided we're not gonna evacuate at all. So we called the guys together and said, these guys will search the place if you want them to, and you can go home. But you know the place, you know if there's anything. We're looking for volunteers, and I think only about 2 people in the whole place left. The rest of them searched the place.
Yeah.
It was a crank call.
Yeah.
But if something had happened,
They had a bomb scare at school, and I pulled into Ross's Point, loaded the kids up, loaded about 100 kids in there. I said, where do you want me to go? Stay right here. I So I stayed here. I said, there's a bomb in there and I'm gonna be parked 10 feet from the building. I drove out, went up and parked back of Harris. Yeah, I'll stay right here. What sense does it do?
Well, there's so many bomb scares and so few bombs.
Well, it doesn't take it very long to drive the bus around the
Yeah,
corner, no.
Yeah. Let's see, purchasing, I don't know, have any idea who might have been there before
Lucky
Bob
Clark.
Manigault. but
Lucky Clark.
Lucky-
Oh, yeah, Lucky was the,
Yeah.
and his father before that.
Yeah.
They were responsible for purchasing, and then Bob came in for a while. Or Bob came in right after Bob helped set that up, I think.
I think Clark used to take the old guy a little song. Old Clark could call him up and ask him a question. Cleo would say, just a minute, I'll sing you a little song first.
Cleo Beaver?
Yeah, he said, oh, sorry, the old man come trotting in there, just a hollering and a carrying on. You're the nice old guy.
Yeah, I think Jerry Kelly came after.
After Manigault, yeah.
Yeah. There was some more after that, but I don't remember.
Others that
Because
were-
Jerry went to Illyria.
There was a colonel, retired
Oh,
colonel.
yes.
Yeah.
His name was Jerry.
Yeah.
Barton,
Barton,
Jerry
Jerry
Barton.
Barton.
for a while, yeah.
He came out of the Air Force.
Didn't Puggy end up in there? Puggy Manap was in accounting, then he went to the
Puggy
British.
was in, that's right, I forgot now.
Yeah.
Puggy was in there.
Of course, that's where George Cameron and Mike, Mike actually went into production control.
Yeah, he worked in a job like you did, and then he went into
Then he
purchasing.
went into purchasing.
I think that was when
Maybe when
George
George
Cameron,
left.
yeah,
I think he was when George left, yeah.
because of his experience in CAD. Found it.
And I'm trying to remember some of the chiefs on the floor when I started. Paul was one, your brother Paul Lavoie. Now, Henry was a chief occasionally, right?
Regularly.
Joe Garso.
Yeah.
George Favreau.
Yep.
Yeah.
Willie Belangeon, you mentioned earlier. Jim Patnell, of course, was there forever. Alex Shaw, Dave Remillard was the chief toward the end, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, he was there for a long time.
Yeah, but I don't think he was always a chief. I know he was toward the end there.
Right.
And your father-in-law, Joe Coulombe, was the
Yeah.
chief when I came.
Albert Goki.
Yeah.
Albert
Albert
Hope.
Oakey wasn't the chief. Yes,
Yeah,
he was.
yeah, he was.
He was.
Yeah.
Jim Patnell was foreman, Albert was the chief.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then Smitty,
Harold Smith,
Errol Smith was down there. Then you had,
Red Fillion,
Red was,
Ralph Fillion.
and Mr. Clamps, Homer Duquette, always working on his
Homer
clamps.
That was Gripper Bars.
Gripper Bar, that's right, Gripper Bars, and he worked on clamps a bit too, but that was Cody.
Cody and Sonny Babby.
Yep.
Sonny
Larry,
Babbitt.
Lawrence Cody.
Yeah.
Larry
Cody.
Yeah, and Alfred Babby, you're right, built a lot of clamps. Elton Garrett was down there too.
Was Lesser chief for that?
Yeah, he was the chief before he became foreman.
And Ronnie Gooley was not a chief, but he worked down in the parts department area, there in the repair area.
Yeah, Ronnie Cooley would chase a lot of parts.
Him and Homer Gamache.
Yeah, Homer Gamache
Homer
was,
and
um,
Larry LaForce actually started working with Ronnie.
yeah.
It's when they posted the wages, somehow out of the burn department, I don't know if they come out in the union book or what. Him and Homer had quite a discussion near my desk. They were making as much as the guy in the burn department. It was back when Ronnie Gooley took a white collar job in 45 when he come out of service. It was a big thing. I was making 50 cents an hour. He was probably making 60. They stayed, didn't get too many raises on this side of the track, I guess.
Yeah, union had its function.
I got a nickel.
And who else? Well, of course, in working down there, Joe Martineau, what a mechanical
Yeah.
man that was for repairs. He
He was good.
he was a real asset in that area.
Old Bill Maynard used to take care of the repairs.
That's right.
Yeah, that's going way back.
He was a fussy
He
old
worked
bird.
with
Boy, I
Ron.
worked for him.
Ronnie Gooley, and he worked together.
When they went out, it was quality.
And of course, on the phone, later on, your brother Phil was in production control, but later on, at the end, when Judy was there, he was on the phone with the repair department.
He was in the parts service department.
Yeah, and for many years, Cliff Aubrey. And Cliff would just amazed me, because I'd listen to this guy. You'd have somebody in Timbuktu talking about this machine, and Cliff would describe the machine to him, say this part, no prints, nothing in front of him. It was all in there, and he just,
He'd be pretty.
he'd bring that guy through, and he knew in his head, and I just, how did, how could this,
For all the machines we had.
yeah.
Ronnie Gooley too. I asked him one time, I had a part during an inventory. I said, you know the part number of that? Yep. Give me the part number, I went up and got a print.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break and come back and make sure we cover everything that these guys wanna talk about.
The old white truck, they used to drag stuff around,
No,
had a horse for it.
not that old.
We're back. We're back. We've got a black and white picture on the screen. Looks like they're having a snack.
Hamill was telling me this. Horse used to go between the buildings here, and some guy threw it. After that one, the horse go by.
Sure.
You believed him.
No, that's what you told me. I just repeating the story.
Okay, the picture that was on there is some people having some cake or something here. This was a typical day at work at the shop. In fact, well, I didn't mention this here. And
We got the leftovers.
yeah,
We did, yeah.
we're all fellows here. I don't have any women here, so I know I'm gonna get people complaining about no women here taking part in this, but this is just how it shook out. But at the end, women were liberated and we were going through the shop. But I can remember when I started here in '66, a woman stuck her nose out the door. It was like guys in the prison. They'd hoop and holler, and
That's true. No women went to the plant.
no woman with the plant.
We didn't. No, that was one of the unwritten rules, no women in the plant. And we had to finally change that. And we went and cleaned up the plant a little bit. There was some pictures out there, they weren't very, very nice.
Jack took, it was an old ladies society, I guess they called it. And this guy had a dirty picture in his toolbox. And I didn't get to it. And they walked through, Jack didn't see it or he had a fit. This old lady comes along and looking around. She looked around again, see if anybody. Took another look, went on down the road. But I figured if they come back, it was gone.
Well, obviously, you wouldn't have known such a picture was there, right?
No, I didn't notice it.
The guys used to put them in the cover of their toolbox.
Yeah, they don't have a
So
toolbox.
when it was closed, it was all right, but.
That's the way you start the day.
You need some inspiration, right, Ernie?
I think when the women first started coming to the plant, Roger and all that was like, not the trial room, but they'd go out, started off, I think it was Maryland, that would go out and post notices rather than a guy do it. So they started with that and then slowly.
Yeah.
It
That was a
foolish.
sweet little thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. She was very nice.
And then we even
Oh,
got,
not Maryland, I'm thinking of somebody else.
Maryland was a sweet.
Yeah, the
Maryland
chief
was very nice.
expediter there,
be careful.
no, I'm just, Norleen?
Oh, Lena McDonald, Harley.
Yeah, she was a sweet little thing.
She's working at, nursing home, Figurehead.
Oh,
She's like a leader of activities.
Yeah,
oh.
She worked
really likes
at
it.
Prim Hall for a while.
Yeah.
yeah, she was another one that went to Prim Hall.
Yeah.
Are there others that went, Bobby Gay went there, others that went there?
A lot of them. Norman Duquette is there.
Oh, I heard,
Harold Scriber is there.
a week ago, we fired all them old timers, Prim Hall did.
I didn't get it.
I heard that just a couple of days ago. I can't think of the name now. But the oldest ones there got canned.
Well, something to look into.
She's out there.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
We can't be starting rumors here about.
Harold's still there.
Harold's still there.
In that picture here, I want to get this picture. This is not your typical day, as I just pointed out. Judy can take that picture again here. Names included in there are Terry Aubrey, Terry Penfield, Margaret Monette, Lillian Matat Corcoran, Rose Bayshard Mayo. Got it, I hope. Art LeMay has got the back to the Art May. He was the personnel.
Personnel.
And then Evelyn Gagne, I guess, is in there. These are pictures that Ernie and Joyce Lavoie have gathered. And Ernie, are you going to put these in a book one of these days, or what's your plan?
We gonna put them in a book?
Yeah, I asked you first.
If my wife finds time.
Now, thanks to Clifton Gamache, who went around toward the end of the days of Harris, there is a video that Clifton made of,
Yeah.
including the inside of the plant.
Oh, yeah.
And Judy also went around a few places before she left. So there is a few shots, nothing that,
Captured.
yeah, nothing really great like we'd probably like to have, but there is some good shots in there that Clifton had. He narrated it. This was a sheet stretcher, as you tell me, was included in this picture here. You got Claire Passano-Filion, Claire Filion, Red Filion, Paul Strack, that's holding the child, that's Al's brother. Dorothy Manor Strack. Young man unknown.
Al thinks that's his brother Art.
Art?
Yeah. This guy.
Yeah, the guy with his hands in his pocket and the shirt on. Might be Al's brother Art. Eleanor Coonan, postmistress at Champlain. Lucky Clark, Lockwood Clark. Joe Papin, that would be Luella's husband.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Luella and Joe lived on Stony Point, and Luella was the editor of the North Dutchman for many years. Walton Patry. Patry's another family that we've mentioned briefly here, but that's another family that was active here. A lady and a boy unknown. You didn't get the picture? Oh, well.
No.
My cameraman's not telling me, keeping me up to date there.
Not looking.
Okay. Now we got it. It's all scientific here how we do this. So those are the people we just talked about. Who's, any idea who's running that machine? Who does,
No, I don't have the faintest idea.
No, I don't either.
Let's see if I can make that.
the only guy getting paid there is unidentified.
No. No, don't recognize him at all. Suspect it's an engineer. One of-
That would be
yeah.
an engineer, I think, yeah.
And we're probably gonna do, maybe another one here with a large group of people, just to, and this time I'll make sure Judy's got the picture before I move the buck. So my apologies. And, if you will freeze that on there. And we have it. Lady and child are unknown. Mrs. Morris Palmer and son. Palmer's another with Orville Palmer and Morris Palmer.
We lived over in one of the houses.
Yeah. Betty Wetterhahn and Gus Wetterhahn, they're wife heiress, actually heiress people. Edward Favreau. I don't see Eddie Favreau, but he's listed there. Bernie Patry, man with hat unknown. Paul Chamberlain. I think that's Eddie?
Just barely good.
Okay, Ralph thinks he spotted Eddie. Paul Chamberlain. Paul had left here by the time I came, but he was employed. What did Paul Chamberlain do here?
Paul Chamberlain was in engineering, and he went off working for one of our customers, and then became a supplier of adhesive products himself.
He went on to Chicago, right? In Chicago
Yes,
area?
in the Chicago area.
And let's see, Joe Grimshaw Jr. is in there. Ruth Grimshaw Strack is in there. That'd be Phil's wife.
Right.
Rose Laramie and Homer Laramie. Homer way on the far right. And that's just some of the many pictures that Ernie Lavoie has. Feel free to stop in his house anytime to look at them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Night or day. And hopefully there'll be enough inspiration and time that Joyce and Ernie can put this in some kind of a book form, but I'm sure.
Well, Joyce has been looking for, you probably noticed, we have these, we have the pictures and these plastic, but what she's looking for are the ones that will preserve the pictures, so that they won't get yellow but they're very expensive.
Something that would seal them in.
Yeah.
Laminated?
Maybe someday we'll get them. For now, we did this here, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I had a couple of pictures here, I don't know if I missed it or what. I wanted to show you that. Did you see this one about Mr. Mr. Lerdier, and Mr. Jefferson,
Andy
and
Marr's father.
Annie Marr and his wife,
Grandfather-in-law.
and old Pierre with the binders, you know.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about him, never met him. He
Okay,
was
this
a
is-
binder and staller.
Binder, Runderbacker,
Used to install.
case maker, he knew him, boy, he knew him by heart.
Okay,
He's on the field, he's on the road all the time, you know.
Yeah.
the way they've got, how do you pronounce that?
Who?
Lavri.
Pierre Lerdier,
Okay.
Eddie Yale.
Water of the year.
Lavribiere. Now they've spelled it here, but I won't say that's gospel because they spelled Mr. Marr's name wrong, so.
But, old Pierre, there's a picture of old Pierre right there.
All right, gentlemen, any other topics that we should have covered? I know there's gonna be hundreds of names that we didn't mention, that I apologize, but, it's Ralph's fault. Anything else that we ought to throw out here, or we wrap up this mini-series that we've called The History of Sheridan?
Here, you might want to show this.
Okay,
There's Ted Clark, Jack, Mr. Greenberg, and Nazaire. I don't know if that's, she had that was Nazaire's retirement party. I find that hard to believe, and the reason why I find it hard to believe, Nazaire's not sitting at the center of the table, you know, if you're gonna have a party for somebody, you're not gonna sit them at the end of the table.
well, maybe that's
Maybe you
not,
will, but,
maybe that's not the whole table, maybe there's more people sitting at the other side.
and there's a picture here, Ralph Stone and Paul Boyer and Irving Robinson. And this is the first time I've ever seen Irving Robinson drink anything. He's drinking wine.
Okay, well, let's get the people here, this picture that people looking at, 1960, Oscar Greenberg,
What?
Ted Clark, John Zerlo Sr., and Nazaire Lavoie Jr., which would be your brother. And,
Right.
and that the Knights of Columbus, or, looks, I don't know, looks like
My
that
guess
fireplace.
is that's the
Midway, isn't it?
Midway.
Midway,
Gateway?
Midway.
Midway, okay.
Midway.
That's where they used to have a lot of the functions.
Huh?
That's where they used to have a lot of the
Right, a lot of
functions.
functions there,
Yeah.
yeah.
The old Midway.
Okay, we'll get these three here. This was taken at the Saxony Hotel. And as soon as Judy has the picture, we've got it. And these three people are Irwin Robinson, Raymond Stone, and Paul Lavoie. Paul, of course, was on the assembly floor.
Raymond Stone is Charlie Stone's father.
Charlie Stone's father. And what did he do?
Engineer. Right. Raymond Stone was an engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray Stone was an
And
engineer.
Irvin Robinson?
He was a
Ran a
lathe
lathe.
operator.
Yeah. Bob Morgan? Anything else?
What's that?
Al Strack, nothing?
Nothing. We'll think of dozens of things
Yeah,
after
yes.
you shut off.
Yes. Bob Emery? You know, we've gone a long time when Bob Emery has run out of things to say.
He has other stories that he get him started.
And Ralph Boyer?
Not anything else that I can think of.
All right. This was about 10 years in the making from when I first thought about doing this, and it's taken a while, but it's just something that I felt we had to do. And again, we apologize to all the people we didn't mention. There were hundreds and hundreds of people who passed through these doors over the careers of the gentlemen that were here. And let's just, Ernie, how many years did you work there?
At the shop?
Yeah.
44 and a half.
44 and a half. Ralph's going to be our
Let's say
mathematician. We're going to round it off to 45. Is that all right?
Pardon?
Call it 45? Can we call it 45?
Yeah.
Okay. Bob Morgan, you're still on the payroll here, so we got to keep counting. This is 66?
Well, keep on counting for 31.
31? That's right, because you left to go to Alco Meatpacking for 4 or 5 years. Al Strack?
And 40 in Champlain and 4 in Dayton, so that's 44 total.
44.
42.
42 and 28.
Add it up.
6, 10, 20. 6, 9, 13, 17, 196, 10, 20, 6, 17, 190 years.
190 years, 15 years for Judy behind the camera.
That's right, Calvin.
I was there for
15.
9 years, I worked 1 year.
It's 215 years, let's say around there.
So,
Well, and in the year you worked.
well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you giving up your entire afternoon.
Thank you.
It is shut down here, and we got it all be out vacationing.
Yep.
All right, and thank you, Judy, for